You feel it happening. The texts are shorter, the calls are fewer, the warmth is fading, and deep down, you know something's changed. He's pulling away. But why? And what should you do next? Most women make the same mistake when this happens. They chase, they overanalyze, they panic. They send another message, hoping for reassurance. They ask, is everything okay? But instead of bringing him closer, it only pushes him further away. Here's what no one tells you. Distance isn't always a bad sign. It's a test. And if you handle it the wrong way, you fail it instantly. But if you handle it the right way, you shift the entire dynamic in your favor, without begging, without losing yourself, and without playing games. This is where Stoic wisdom meets modern love. In this video, you'll learn exactly why he's pulling away, how to respond with power, and how to make him realize your worth without saying a word. Because the truth is, attraction isn't built through words. It's built through mystery, self-respect, and the power of silence. So before you react, before you send that text, watch this first. Drop a comment below if you've ever been in this situation. Let's talk about it. Now let's get into it. 1. Why he's pulling away, understanding the real reasons. You felt it. That slow shift. The way his texts lost warmth. The way his presence became more like a shadow than a certainty. He used to reach out first. Now it's you, staring at your phone, wondering when things changed. You replay conversations in your head, searching for the moment it all started slipping away. And then comes the fear. Maybe he's lost interest. Maybe there's someone else. Maybe it's you. Maybe you did something wrong. But before you let panic take control, before you let your mind create stories that don't exist, stop. Take a breath. Not every distance means disinterest. Not every silence means goodbye. There's something deeper happening. And before you react, you need to understand it. Men pull away for reasons most women never consider. Sometimes it's not about you at all. It's about space, identity, and the need to recalibrate. Men navigate emotions differently. Where women seek connection, men often withdraw to process what they're feeling. It's not a rejection, it's a reset. But if you don't understand this, if you react with fear, you can turn temporary distance into permanent absence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. This applies to love as much as life. When he pulls away, your power lies in how you respond. Not in forcing a reaction, not in chasing, but in mastering the one thing within your control, yourself. There was a woman named Amelia. Strong, independent, the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room, not just because of her beauty, but because of something more, a quiet confidence, a presence. She had been with Ethan for 2 years. They were happy, or at least she thought they were. And then one day, something shifted. The texts became fewer, the moments of affection, rare. She felt it slipping, and it terrified her. She tried everything. Checking in more, planning surprise dates, asking him over and over if something was wrong. But the more she reached, the more he recoiled. It felt like grasping at sand. The harder she held on, the faster it slipped through her fingers. One night, after another conversation that led nowhere, she broke. She asked him outright, "Do you still love me?" And the look on his face shattered her. Not because of anger, not because of rejection, but because he didn't have an answer. That was the moment she realized, this wasn't about her at all. Amelia did something most women wouldn't. She let go, but of control. Instead of questioning, instead of chasing, she pulled back. Not to manipulate him, not to play games, but because she finally understood that his distance wasn't a demand for her attention. It was a call for space. She focused on herself, on her life outside of him, on the things that made her feel whole before he was ever in the picture. And something incredible happened. Ethan noticed. The shift in energy was undeniable. Suddenly he was the one wondering, the one reaching. Because for the first time in months, she wasn't waiting on him. Think of fire. If you smother it, if you press too close, it dies. But when you give it space, when you allow oxygen to feed it, it burns brighter. Love is the same. The more you push against distance, the more suffocating it becomes. But when you step back, when you trust in what's meant for you, it breathes. It grows. The hardest thing for a woman to do when she feels a man slipping away is to stand still. But that is exactly what she must do. Let him feel your absence. Let him remember what it feels like to chase, to wonder, to miss you. Because a man values what he works for. And if you never give him the space to realize what he might lose, he will never truly appreciate what he has. The next time you feel that shift, don't panic, don't chase. Become the fire that stands still, burning steady, knowing that the right man will never walk away from warmth that is rare, from light that is irreplaceable. 2. The silent test you didn't notice. Something feels off. He's still there, but different. His words lack the warmth they once held. His messages feel colder, like a door slowly closing. The rhythm you shared, effortless and unspoken, suddenly shifts. And now you're caught in a loop, analyzing every interaction, searching for the moment it all started to change. Your first instinct? Fix it. Most women react the same way. They try harder, they send more texts, call more often, ask questions they never would have asked before. Are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Is something happening between us? They think that if they just show enough care, enough love, enough presence, he will snap out of it and come back. But what if I told you that the moment you start chasing, you fail? Men, like women, have subconscious tests in relationships. When they withdraw, they're not just dealing with their own emotions, they're observing yours. Do you panic? Do you start grasping for control? Or do you remain calm, steady, unshaken? The Stoics believed that control over one's emotions is the key to control over one's life. They understood that the moment you allow external circumstances, someone's words, someone's distance, someone's silence, to dictate your emotional state, you have given away your power. This is true in love as much as it is in life. Sophia and Daniel had been together for a few months, the kind of relationship that feels easy, natural, until it doesn't. One day Daniel was affectionate, warm, the next he wasn't. At first it was small things, his responses took longer. The enthusiasm in his voice faded just a little, but soon it became undeniable. Sophia felt it in her gut, and instead of giving him space, she reacted. She messaged him more. When he didn't reply fast enough, she checked his social media, overanalyzed the last time he was online. She asked, "Are you okay?" in the morning. By afternoon, no reply. So she called. Once, twice, 3 times, each time straight to voicemail. Her mind raced. Maybe he lost interest. Maybe he met someone else. Maybe if she just showed up, he would see how much she cared. By evening, she was at his apartment door, knocking. When Daniel finally answered, his face told her everything she didn't want to know. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" That moment changed everything. Daniel wasn't angry. He wasn't even distant because of her. He was overwhelmed. Work stress, financial burdens, personal doubts. He needed space to figure things out. But all he saw in that moment was that Sophia couldn't handle uncertainty, that she couldn't sit with discomfort. And suddenly, what once felt exciting now felt exhausting. That night, he sent a message that shattered her. "I think we need to take a step back." Sophia's mistake wasn't loving too much, it was letting fear take over. She tried to pull him close when what he needed was to breathe. And in doing so, she lost him. Fire needs oxygen to burn. Love is no different. If you suffocate it, if you try to control, to cling, to demand, you put out the very flame you're trying to keep alive. Men don't always express what they feel in words. When they struggle, many turn inward. They process alone, not because they don't care, but because that's how they are wired. And the moment you rush in, trying to fix what isn't broken, you shift the dynamic. You become the one seeking reassurance instead of being the source of it. Imagine standing in the ocean. The waves rise and fall, pulling at your feet. If you resist, if you fight against the tide, you exhaust yourself. But if you trust the water, if you allow it to move as it must, you remain standing. This is how you must be in love. When he pulls away, let him. Not out of manipulation, not as a strategy, but as a reflection of your own strength. Let him see that your happiness does not depend on his validation. Let him wonder why you are so unshaken. Because the truth is, a woman who can sit with uncertainty, who does not beg for love but commands it effortlessly, is the kind of woman a man never forgets. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And that strength? It is in how you carry yourself when things become uncertain. If he's silent, let him be. If he is distant, give him space. Not because you don't care, but because a woman of value does not chase, does not beg. She simply remains unshaken, radiant, untouchable. 3. The The power of distance, why space can strengthen love. You feel it creeping in, the shift, the slow fade. He no longer texts first. His replies come hours later, short and indifferent. When you're together, he's distracted. The warmth that once felt effortless now feels like something you have to work for. And that terrifies you. So you do what most women do. You compensate. You send another message, trying to restart the energy. You remind him of the good times, hoping he'll snap out of it. You initiate plans, thinking maybe he just needs a little nudge. You keep trying, hoping that if you show him how much you care, he'll see your value. But instead of bringing him closer, it does the opposite. He pulls back further. And suddenly, you're in a dynamic you never wanted, where he is the one choosing when and how he engages, while you're left waiting, wondering, hoping. What if, instead of chasing, you stepped back? The Stoics believed that attachment leads to suffering. That the more you cling to something outside of yourself, the more power you give away. Attraction works the same way. The more you try to hold on to a man, the less he feels the need to hold on to you. Lily loved Noah deeply. She was the kind of woman who gave with her whole heart, who never let a day go by without reminding him how much she cared. In the beginning, it felt like they were perfectly in sync. But over time, something changed. She noticed she was the one always texting first, the one planning their dates, the one carrying the weight of the relationship, while he slowly became more passive, more distant. At first, she ignored it. She told herself it was just a phase, that maybe he was busy, maybe he was stressed. But deep down, she knew. And then, one evening, as she waited for his usual goodnight text that never came, something inside her shifted. She decided she wouldn't be the one to reach out first, not out of anger, not to test him, but because she realized something important. If she had to force his attention, it was never truly hers to begin with. So she stopped. She didn't text him that morning. She didn't check in to see how his day was. She didn't try to arrange plans for the weekend. She simply pulled back. At first, nothing happened. Noah went about his days as usual, responding when necessary but never initiating. The silence was deafening. Lily felt the pull of habit, the need to fix, to control. But she held firm. She understood now that real connection is not something you chase, it's something freely given. And then, after a few days, something changed. Noah texted first. "Hey, haven't heard from you in a while." A few days later, "Wanna grab dinner?" And then, one night, something unexpected. "I miss you." He started leaning in because, for the first time, he felt her absence. And absence creates longing. Men do not fall in love with presence. They fall in love with absence, with the fear that they may have lost something valuable. Imagine a song you hear on the radio every single day. It plays so often that you stop paying attention to the lyrics. But then, one day, it's gone. And suddenly, you find yourself searching for it, realizing how much you miss it. This is how attraction works. When something is always there, always accessible, it blends into the background. But when it disappears, even for a moment, it becomes noticeable again. It creates a space that demands to be filled. Seneca once said, "A gift much expected is not valued. What is given too freely is rarely appreciated." And that applies to love as much as anything else. Lily didn't play games. She didn't manipulate. She simply shifted her energy. And in doing so, she let Noah feel the difference between a woman who begs for love and a woman who is love. If a man is truly interested, he will notice when you step back. He will feel the shift. And if he values you, he will act. If he doesn't, then he was never meant to stay. So before you send that message, before you try to fix what isn't yours to fix, stop. Give him space. Let him feel the silence. Let him wonder where you went. And if he wants you in his life, he will prove it, not with words, but with actions. 4. How to respond instead of panicking. Something inside you tightens when you feel him slipping away. The instinct to fix, to reach out, to demand answers rushes in before you can stop it. He hasn't texted. He's different. He's colder. Your mind races with possibilities. Maybe he's losing interest. Maybe he's talking to someone else. Maybe, just maybe, if you do something now, you can stop him from leaving. But here's the truth. Panic destroys attraction faster than distance ever could. Most women believe that when a man pulls away, it's their job to chase him back. That if they explain their feelings, prove their worth, or remind him of what they have, he'll suddenly wake up and realize what he's about to lose. But attraction doesn't work that way. Desperation doesn't inspire desire, it suffocates it. The Stoics believed that true strength lies in control, not over others, but over yourself. You cannot force someone to feel a certain way. You cannot demand affection, loyalty, or attention. What you can control is how you react when things don't go the way you want. And in love, the ability to remain calm in uncertainty is what separates the women men forget from the women they can't forget. Rachel had learned this the hard way. Years ago, she had loved a man who left her. Not all at once, but in small, painful steps. She had felt him fading, and in response, had held on tighter. She had sent long, emotional texts. She had called late at night asking, "What's wrong?" She had begged for reassurance only to watch him pull further away. And then one day, he was gone. This time with Matt, she refused to make the same mistake. At first, everything between them had been effortless. He adored her, pursued her, made her feel wanted. But then, the distance crept in. He became inconsistent. Conversations grew shorter. Plans became vague. She felt the familiar panic rising. But instead of reacting, she stopped. She didn't text first. She didn't ask if everything was okay. She didn't sit by her phone, waiting for his attention to validate her worth. She went out with friends. She focused on her career. She took care of herself, not as a strategy to make him miss her, but because she refused to abandon herself just because a man was being distant. 2 weeks passed before Matt reached out. "Hey, I feel like we haven't talked much lately. What's going on?" He had expected her to chase. Expected her to ask what had changed. Expected her to do the work to pull him back in. Instead, she had left him alone with his own silence, forcing him to feel the weight of it. And that made all the difference. She met him for coffee. She listened to what he had to say, but she didn't break her own boundaries just because he suddenly realized what he had. And for the first time, Matt saw her not as someone waiting for his attention, but as someone he could lose. Nothing makes a man reevaluate his feelings more than the realization that the woman he thought would always be there isn't. Imagine a flame. When you shield it with your hands, trying to control it, it suffocates, but when you give it space, it burns stronger. Love is the same. If you react emotionally, if you cling, if you let fear dictate your actions, you smother the very connection you're trying to protect. But if you hold your ground, if you allow space, if you remain steady, if you refuse to chase, you create a pull stronger than words ever could. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." When he pulls away, don't panic, don't beg, don't explain. Simply continue living as the radiant, confident woman you are. And if he values you, he will return, not because you forced him to, but because he chose to. But what if he doesn't? That is where true power lies. Because the woman who is unshaken by a man's silence is the woman who commands his attention without ever having to demand it. She is the woman who knows that the right man will never require her to lose herself in order to keep him. And that is the difference between a woman who waits for love and a woman who is love. 5. When silence speaks louder than words. The urge to explain, to defend, to make him understand, it's overwhelming. He hasn't responded, and your fingers hover over your phone, drafting a message that you hope will fix everything. You want to remind him of what you have, to clarify the misunderstanding, to say something, anything that will bring him back. But sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Most women believe that silence is a void that needs to be filled, that if they don't say something, the relationship will slip away. But silence is not emptiness, it's space. Space that forces a man to reflect, to feel your absence, to confront his own emotions without your influence. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that restraint is more powerful than reaction, that true control is knowing when not to speak. Epictetus once said, "If someone is able to provoke you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." If his distance, his silence, his withdrawal makes you frantic, you have given him control over your emotions. And a woman who is ruled by emotions loses her power. Maggie and Alex had been together for almost a year. Their connection was strong, but one night, an argument changed everything. Heated words were exchanged, doors were slammed, and suddenly Alex was gone. He didn't text. He didn't call. Maggie sat alone staring at her phone. She drafted messages, some apologetic, some demanding. "We need to talk. I didn't mean what I said. Are we just going to ignore this?" She was moments away from hitting send when she remembered something her older sister had told her. If a man cares, he will come back. If he doesn't, no amount of words will make him stay. So she did something she had never done before. She chose silence. The first day was torture. She wanted to reach out, to check if he was thinking about her, to make sure he wasn't slipping away. But she didn't. Instead, she poured herself into her life. She went to work. She met up with friends. She lived. By the third day, her phone lit up. "I've been thinking a lot. I don't want to lose you." Alex had spent the last 3 days battling his own thoughts. He expected Maggie to chase, to demand an explanation. When she didn't, he was forced to face the silence himself. And in that silence, he realized something. He missed her. A man who values you will never let silence stretch too long. Imagine you're in a room filled with noise, people talking, music playing, distractions everywhere. It's easy to overlook a single voice. But the moment the room falls silent, the absence is deafening. This is what silence does in love. It creates space for realization, for reflection, for appreciation. If a man walks away and never looks back, your words wouldn't have changed anything. But if he truly cares, he will feel the weight of your absence. And that weight will pull him back more than any message ever could. Silence is a mirror. It forces people to see themselves, to face what they truly feel without external influence. If a man is unsure about you, your silence gives him the space to answer his own questions. If he realizes he's happier without you, then nothing you say would have changed the outcome. But if he feels the void, if he starts to miss what was effortlessly there, he will return, not because you chased him, but because he finally understood your value. Seneca once wrote, "A wise man is content with himself." This is your power, to be content even in uncertainty, to remain unmoved by temporary silence, to understand that true connection does not need to be forced. It needs to be recognized. Maggie didn't play games. She didn't wait by the phone, calculating when to reply. She simply stepped back and let Alex come to his own realization. And in doing so, she did not just regain his attention, she gained his respect. Men don't fall in love through words. They fall in love through absence. Through the realization that the woman they once took for granted might not be there anymore. And that realization is only possible when you give them the space to feel it. So when he stops talking, let him. When he pulls away, don't chase. Let the silence do what words never can. And if he values you, he will find his way back. Not because you begged for his attention, but because he finally understood your worth. And if he doesn't, then you will have saved yourself from wasting more time on a man who was never meant to stay. 6. The moment he starts to miss you. You never notice the air around you until it's gone. The same way you never truly appreciate light until you've spent time in the dark. And when a man starts to feel your absence, when he realizes that the energy, warmth, and presence you once brought into his life is no longer within reach, something shifts. But here's the part most women get wrong. They think a man will miss them if they constantly remind him of their presence, if they send one last message, if they leave subtle hints, if they show up where he'll see them. But that's not how attraction works. A man doesn't miss what is still available. He misses what he fears he might never experience again. The Stoics believed that value is created through scarcity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." When a man is given space to think, when he is no longer surrounded by your constant presence, he begins to see things differently. Imagine a beautiful painting in a gallery. If you walk past it every day, it starts to blend into the background. You stop noticing the details, the colors, the depth. But if one day it disappears, suddenly you remember. You realize how much it added to the space, how it made the room feel alive. This is what happens when a man begins to miss you. He starts to notice the absence of your laughter, the way you used to brighten up his mornings, the way conversations with you felt effortless. He scrolls through old messages, wondering why he didn't appreciate them more when they were happening in real time. He checks to see if you're online, waits a little longer before responding, hoping in some unspoken way that you'll reach out first. But here's the key. You don't. Because the moment you reach out first, the moment you break the silence, you interrupt the very process that makes him realize your worth. You remove the mystery. You erase the space that forces him to feel your absence. Silence is powerful. It creates tension, and tension creates attraction. Most people don't understand this. They think that love is about constant presence, about proving their devotion at every opportunity. But the strongest emotions are born in the moments of uncertainty, in the spaces where longing has time to grow. If you've ever watched a movie where two characters are about to kiss, you'll notice something. The most intense moment isn't when their lips touch. It's the second right before, when the air between them is charged with anticipation. That's what creates the feeling of desire. That's what makes the moment unforgettable. A man who never has to wonder about you, never has to question where you stand, never has to miss you, will never truly value you. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And that is exactly why space is so powerful. When he doesn't hear from you, when he starts to wonder if you've moved on, his mind fills in the gaps. He starts to create a version of you that is even more captivating than the one he took for granted. Think about the last time you misplaced something valuable. Your favorite ring, a cherished gift, an old photograph. The moment you realized it was missing, what happened? A wave of panic, a sudden realization of how much it meant to you. And then, an urgent need to get it back. This is what happens when a man starts to feel your absence. But the moment you remind him, the moment you reach out, the spell is broken. The urgency fades, the longing disappears. He no longer has to miss you, because you've just proven that you were never really gone. So before you give in to the temptation of reaching out, before you send the text just to check in, stop. Let him miss you. Let him feel the distance. Let him wonder, because when a man truly values you, he won't just miss you, he'll come back. And when he does, it won't be because you reminded him of your worth. It will be because he finally realized it on his own. 7. How to handle it when he comes back. He left. Maybe without warning, maybe slowly over time. At first, you didn't want to believe it. You replayed every conversation, every interaction, wondering what went wrong. You felt the urge to reach out, to explain, to remind him of what you had. But you didn't. And then, after weeks of silence, he returns. A simple text, "Hey, I've been thinking about you." Your heart jumps. Your fingers hover over the keyboard. Part of you wants to welcome him back with open arms. Another part hesitates, remembering the emptiness he left behind. What you do next will determine everything. Most women make the same mistake. They accept him back too easily. They assume that his return means he's changed, that he finally realizes their worth. But more often than not, he's only back because he feels your absence, not because he values you more. If you make it too easy, he learns nothing. The Stoics taught that self-respect is the foundation of all relationships. Epictetus once said, "How long will you wait before you demand the best for yourself?" This is the moment where you set the standard, not just for him, but for yourself. Sarah had made this mistake before. She had been in love with a man who always left, only to come back when he felt lonely, when his life wasn't going the way he wanted. And every time, she forgave him instantly. She thought that by being understanding, by being patient, she was proving her love. But all she did was prove that he could treat her however he wanted, and she would still be there. But this time was different. Mark had disappeared for 3 weeks. No explanation, no reason, just silence. And instead of chasing him, Sarah did something she had never done before. She focused on herself. She built a life that had nothing to do with him. And then, just like clockwork, Mark returned. "Hey, I miss you." She read the message, and for the first time she didn't feel that rush of relief. She didn't feel like she needed to respond right away. Instead, when she did reply, she said, "If you want to be in my life, you need to show me that you're serious. I won't accept half-hearted effort anymore." Silence. For the first time, Mark realized that Sarah had changed, that she was no longer the woman who would take him back just because he showed up. If he wanted her, he would have to prove that he deserved her. A man who values you will rise to meet your standards. A man who doesn't will disappear again. Either way, you win. Think of yourself as a rare diamond. If you give it away too easily, people won't value it. But if someone has to work for it, If they have to prove themselves worthy, suddenly it becomes priceless. The mistake most women make is believing that love means unlimited chances. But true love, the kind that lasts, is built on mutual respect. And respect is not given, it is earned. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others, but strict with yourself." This is what it means to have standards. Not to be cruel, not to play games, but to ensure that the people in your life are there because they truly deserve to be. Imagine a queen sitting on her throne. She does not rise for just anyone. She does not chase. She does not plead. Those who wish to be in her presence must prove they are worthy of standing beside her. You are that queen. When a man returns, he should not find the same woman he left. He should find someone stronger, someone who values herself more, someone who does not hand out second chances without reason. So when he comes back, don't rush to reply. Don't make it easy. Let him prove that he is not the same man who walked away. Let him earn the place in your life that he once took for granted. If he truly wants you, he will do whatever it takes. And if he doesn't, then you've lost nothing. Because a man who only values you when it's convenient was never worth keeping. The deepest lesson you can take from this is simple. You don't need to chase, you don't need to beg, and you don't need to convince anyone to stay. A man who values you will recognize your worth. And if he doesn't, that's your answer. You've learned the power of distance, of silence, of becoming the kind of woman no man wants to lose. Not because you play games, not because you manipulate, but because you elevate yourself to a level where only the worthy can reach you. That's not arrogance, that's self-respect. Stoicism teaches us that control comes from within. Epictetus said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." This includes relationships. You can't control whether a man stays or goes, but you can control how you respond. You can control how you invest in yourself. And when you do, something incredible happens. Your energy shifts, and people start to see you differently. Men don't fall for the woman who needs them. They fall for the woman who chooses herself first. The woman who moves with purpose, with grace, with the quiet confidence that says, "I know who I am, and I don't settle." So take this lesson and live it. Work on your mindset. Strengthen your emotional resilience. Build a life so fulfilling that no absence can shake your peace. And if he comes back, let him prove himself. If he doesn't, you've already won. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment where walking away made someone realize your worth? Share your story in the comments. Let's grow stronger together.